early 90s, Diana, Princess of Wales, hosted a reception, a pre-Christmas reception for her charity representatives at Kensington Palace. Now, we were living there at the time, and she very kindly extended an invitation for us to join the party. So this seemed like quite a wonderful thing to attend. So off we walked up the path to Kensington Palace and to where she was hosting this party in the staterooms, the state apartments there. And as we were walking in, Elton John was just ahead of us. Now, at that point, sure, I feel very grateful. I had met Diana, Princess of Wales on several occasions, but I'd never met a celebrity of the caliber of Elton John. So this was very exciting indeed. So we're following Elton John into the reception, and once we're in there, we're mingling, charity representatives, a few friends. Diana had William and Harry there as well. They were very young at the time. And I was standing with my dad and stepmother, just chatting, talking about the event as it was, and suddenly I felt this presence next to me, and Diana had sidled up to us. And she interrupted a conversation in which my dad and my stepmother were trying to, well, dare me, I guess, to some degree, to go and introduce myself to George Michael, who was standing just over Dad's shoulder. Now, I loved George Michael. Jason Donovan was my teenage crush, but George Michael was my talent crush. I mean, he was magnificent, and a lot of people, particularly at that time, were huge fans. So Diana sidles up, and we're laughing. She said, "What are you laughing about?" And I said, "Well, Dad's daring me to go and meet George Michael, but I'm too chicken." So she said, "Oh, isn't he wonderful?" So she turned to Harry, and she said, "Harry, you should go and introduce your friend Victoria to George Michael." Well, I'd never met Harry. He was, 7, 8, 9, something like that. And he went, "Who's my friend Victoria?" So Diana started giggling, and she said, "She's right here, you fool." But what was lovely in that moment was you could see this really wonderful, cheeky sense of humour and relationship that Diana and Harry shared. He was just tugging on her skirt all night, and he never missed a beat. I mean, his ears were going like this. He was very savvy, and I think he knew that all the interesting conversation was with the grown-ups. So Harry happened to catch the moment that Diana then leaned into me right ahead of encouraging me to go, and very quietly she whispered, "Isn't it a shame he doesn't like the ladies?" And I kind of turned to her, quite shocked. Harry immediately, "Who, Mummy? Who doesn't like the ladies?" And she's going, "Shut up, Harry, shut up." Because, of course, as a child, there was no volume control. But I turned to her and I was like, "Who doesn't like the ladies?" I mean, Harry had a very valid question. And she winked at me and she said, "George Michael." Now, at this point, I think obviously people in his circle knew that he happened to be a gay man, but certainly nobody in the public arena knew. And I definitely didn't know. It didn't make me love him any less, but oh my gosh, in that moment, Diana, Princess of Wales, broke my heart because, of course, I was going to marry George Michael. I had envisioned our whole future. He was going to serenade me on our wedding day. So at this point, she then turns to me, she goes, "Go on, you've got to go and talk to him." Well, if Diana, Princess of Wales, dares you to something, well, you got to do it, right? So over I went. Now, as luck would have it, the week before, 2 weeks before, there had been a really in-depth, fascinating documentary about George Michael on television, and I had lapped up every minute. So I was suddenly the font of knowledge of all things George Michael. So I went over, and I was quite glad because it meant I could sort of try and ask him intelligent questions rather than just drooling at his gorgeousness. But as he was talking to me, I could see Diana over his shoulder, and she was just laughing her head off. She was standing with Dad and my stepmother having quite the giggle. But I think for George Michael, for him, the confidence came in the fact that anyone who was in that room had likely been pre-vetted. Had he met me in any other arena, he probably would have had me arrested. But we managed to have this conversation, and then I politely excused myself because I realised that I was coming to the end of my George Michael trivia. And I went back over to Diana, and we were like giggly little schoolgirls. It was like, "Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God." And I think part of why she had invited George Michael and Elton John to that reception, yes, they were good friends of hers, but I think for her, it was about giving her charity representatives something special to remember. They weren't just coming to a regular reception where you all stand around and make chit-chat. They were coming to a reception at Kensington Palace with her, with the children, but also with an opportunity to meet, rather have that sort of glittering sprinkling of stardust. Anyway, Diana continued to stay with us, and at that point in the evening, it was time for Prince William to make a speech. He had never made a public speech before, and she was standing next to me as he did it, and she leaned into me and she said, "He's the man of the house now." And so I asked him to make a very short speech, and she said he needs to be learning to address people. And it was a very, very short speech. All he did was get up and thank everybody for coming. But of course, it was a pivotal moment for him in terms of his kingly training, his host training, his training as somebody that was welcoming guests to their home. And as she watched it, Diana, you know, a lot of Diana fans will know, she often used to stand sort of with her hands to one side like this, and that's how she watched. She had Harry next to her, she had her hands here, and you could feel the pride just emanating off her. She had really wanted him to have this moment, but in a safe environment. And that's where she was very smart. And I think that's where William and Catherine have been smart much later with their own children, is introducing them to these duties that they're going to have to do in a safe environment. Because of course, everybody there was absolutely delighted and privileged to be there, but delighted to be witnessing this moment in William's life as well. So William gave his little speech. Diana clapped loudly, immensely proud. William came over. She enveloped him in this huge bear hug. Both boys have, or men, I should call them men now, have talked about her hugs, how good she was at hugging. Diana talked about the importance of hugging. And I felt like in that moment, I got to witness a very intimate, personal moment between her and her children. The love for both of them was extreme. So for that reason alone, I forgive her for breaking my heart and being the first to tell me that George Michael sadly did not like the ladies. But I continued to love him, and it was just quite sad for me. I think that there was this wonderful man, this huge talent who so many people adored, but he wasn't able to live his life publicly in the way he should have been allowed to. And I hope that she would be pleased today to see how many in the LGBTQ T plus community are able to live more freely. And I think part of that is down to her and the work that she did with their community in particular. So if she's listening, thank you, Diana. I like to think that she's up there with George Michael by her side, having a giggle at my expense.